This is my reaction to the UFC 287 press conference, which featured Israel Adesanya, Alex Pereira, Jorge Masvidal, Gilbert Burns, Rob Font, Adrian Yanez, Kevin Holland, Santiago Ponzinibbio, Raul Rosas Jr., and also Christian Rodriguez, who got asked one question throughout the entire thing and said basically 3 words the entire press conference. The main takeaways were: what on earth was Israel Adesanya wearing? I am so sick and tired of famous people wearing absolute garbage, and because it's garbage and different, therefore it's style and fashion. I'm sick of that culture in the world right now. It really annoys me how whenever you look at any of these fashion things, it's just people wearing things that are absolutely hideous, and because it's different and no one else is wearing it right now, it's considered fashion and cool. I have no idea how this has happened, but Israel Adesanya came dressed as a destroyer of society, to say the least. He had a dress on and a dog collar. Let's go Pereira. So that happened at the press conference, which was a very big moment there. I really was expecting an amazing press conference. It was not too bad. There was some interesting moments, don't get me wrong. Dana White ruined the whole thing straight away at the beginning, and it was really, really annoying. It really was. He ruined the whole press conference immediately. I have such an anger towards Dana White, and you know why he ruined it? I don't even think he was told not to let Kevin Holland talk trash to Jorge Masvidal. I think he was genuinely in a bad mood about something. Dana White just seemed like the whole time he was in a really negative mood. Maybe Power Slap wasn't doing the numbers that he expected it to do that week. Who knows? But he just seemed in a really bad mood at the press conference and really snappy. And then he took it out on Kevin Holland and Masvidal, trying to make the press conference fun. I was thinking to myself going into this, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. Sure, Pereira and Adesanya aren't really going to talk too much trash because they can't understand each other. So that's going to be a little bit weird. I doubt Burns and Masvidal are going to go back and forth either. I also think Yanez and Font really like each other, so they won't trash talk. Raul Rosas won't do anything. Kevin Holland might have a bit to say about Ponzinibbio, but they don't really have any beef. So the main selling point and the main reason I was excited for the press conference was because Kevin Holland and Jorge Masvidal had beef, and they were just about to get into that beef. They were just about to do it, and the media members knew right what to do. This is boring. Everyone's speaking Spanish. No one can barely understand what's going on. The questions aren't even getting translated, and the people that speak Spanish on stage are all of a sudden answering them without getting the translation of the question first. But that's okay, whatever, they're in Miami, I get it. But the media members went right away. Kevin Holland, Jorge Masvidal, have beef with each other, please. Let's make this fun. And Dana White said no. They're not fighting each other, therefore don't get them to trash talk each other. No trash talk between people that aren't fighting each other. I was expecting Holland to be the life of this press conference, but he literally got refused his ability to be a star. Mr. Free Speech Dana White, suppressing Kevin Holland because you know he's going to trash Masvidal, and you know he's going to trash Israel Adesanya at some point as well. If I was a media member, I would have said, all right, after the Holland and Masvidal beef calms down, hey Holland, who you got in the main event and who do you want to win? Boom, Adesanya and Holland are now going back and forth. They have beef as well. Dana White ruined the whole press conference because he was an angry gremlin of a man. And you knew he was in a bad mood, and he ruined the whole thing. If this is the start of the WWE era, I don't want anything to do with the UFC press conferences anymore. The best trash talk at press conferences has always come from people who aren't really fighting each other. Sean Strickland and Israel Adesanya at UFC 267, I believe it was, or 276, I'm not sure. There was also a moment with Ben Askren when he was trashing Usman at the press conference, and they were going back and forth. This just ruined the entire thing, and I hope this isn't a standard moving forward, but let's get on to the rest of the press conference. A lot of it was in Spanish because they're in Miami. Masvidal, all of a sudden, is speaking Spanish, even though I've always only heard Masvidal speak like one word Spanish. Violencia, and he will say something like that. And be like, you know, he'll just say something, ay carambo, and all of this type of stuff. He'll let out a one-word line of Spanish now and again. But all of a sudden, Masvidal is talking mad trash in Spanish. Not trash. He's just talking Spanish fluently the whole time. I was like, what's Masvidal going to say? Dingo, dingo, and all this type of stuff that he was saying. And I'm like, okay, right, well, we'll wait for a translation because Masvidal has switched what language he normally speaks. All good. Izzy was wearing a dog collar. That's another note that I have in here. Pereira and Adesanya had a little bit of a back and forth in the press conference. It started off pretty nice, but I think that Pereira could sense the energy of Adesanya when he was talking about what he's going to do to Pereira in the fight and all this. And he was talking about, this is my 8 Mile moment. And oh my God, it's so cringe. But he was talking about all that type of stuff and being cringy and saying a bunch of cringe stuff that he normally does with his one-liners. And Pereira could kind of sense in the energy that, what's it called? He could sense the energy of Adesanya was being a bit against him. So he started saying, Adesanya says the same thing in the build-up to all of the fights. And look what happened and look at the results. You know what I mean? He was going to try and go off on the whole you're 0-3 against me type thing. And then after Adesanya said something back to him, after Adesanya, I believe, said, we don't understand each other, so what's the point? Just shut up and let's fight. You know what I mean? Something like that. Pereira then went, you make me laugh, and gave like the weirdest, most animated looking grin. I'm still not over the fact that it could have been photoshopped or animated. AI is getting pretty good right now. His grin looks so weird on his face. It's like he's not supposed to smile. It was a very forced, weird grin that he gave him. And he said that Adesanya makes him laugh. Another decent moment was Dana White again passionately defending Colby Covington getting a title shot after this fight. So that kind of shuts down all that talk. The media members were asking if the winner of Masvidal Burns would be getting a title shot. And Dana White says, Colby Covington made weight at UFC 286. He made weight. You know what I mean? Just screaming that Covington deserves it for making weight once and defending that stance. And to be fair, Covington would be more deserving than Masvidal, even though Masvidal would get a title shot if he wins. But no one's talking about Burns potentially earning a title shot or Bilal Muhammad deserving a title shot. So that's the only problem I have with that argument, is that everyone's using Masvidal as the alternative rather than Shavkat, Bilal, or even Gilbert Burns. Either way, whilst he was doing that, Masvidal and Burns were both booing him side by side on either side of the press conference, which I thought was somewhat interesting. They kept saying boo, boo, and the whole crowd booed Covington getting a title shot, and that was a decent moment in there. And everyone speaking Spanish non-stop. I don't have any other notes. Raul Rosas Jr. said something. I think it was English, but his nose got in the way of it. Christian Rodriguez said, he's Mexican, so he's tough, eh? And then that was that from him for the rest of the press conference. Adrian Yanez had some passion on the mic, talking about how his fight's going to be fight of the night, and the UFC knew what they were doing when they put that fight together. And then at some point as well, Jorge Masvidal pointed out Eve Edwards in the crowd, which was a pretty decent moment. Eve Edwards, legend, fell short to a head kick KO by Jorge Masvidal a very long time ago, but he was in the crowd watching in attendance. Other than that, Israel Adesanya, what did Israel Adesanya say? I don't know what he said. I can't quite remember any of his lines, but I bet he said, I don't keep scores, I settle them. He probably said something about he who laughs last laughs the hardest. He probably said something about I'm the new dog in the... No, that's what he said. Someone said, what's that thing around your neck, Izzy, and why are you wearing it? Very valid question. We were all wondering it. And he said, because I'm a dog, and I'm about to be unleashed. And people cheered him. So it's just like, what's going on in society? Why is he being cheered at these press conferences? On stage in a dress and a dog collar, saying the reason why he's wearing a dog collar is because I got a dog in me, and I'm a dog, and I'm going to be unleashed, botched. You know what I mean? And now he's getting cheered by the crowd. So El Miami, in my opinion, they should have been booing him off the stage after doing that shit. My honest opinion. And then Alex Pereira was just saying that he was being respectful for the most of it, other than when they had that interaction amongst each other. He was saying stuff like, I'm ready for this one. I'm not looking at any of the previous fights. I'm just focusing on this one ahead of me, and I'm making sure to adjust. And I know Israel Adesanya is dangerous, and I need to be focused in this fight because of how good he is. So there was some praise that he gave Adesanya at some moments in that, and Adesanya said the same petty compliment that he says about the fact that his recovery is really good, that Pereira's recovery is really good, and that's about it. Adesanya's gyno is ripe on this fight as well, which was noticeable. What else happened at the press conference? Rob Font probably mumbled something. Yeah, man, it's all good, Oh, yeah, no, I'm fine. Rob Font speaks so quietly. It's like he's trying to do ASMR in the middle of the press conference. What else happened at the press conference? I was really hoping for Holland got basically, shut the fuck up, basically. He was supposed to be the star of this press conference and steal the show and create a bunch of hype around his fight. And then if Masvidal loses to Burns, a bunch of hype around Masvidal versus Holland potentially being next. But they just ruined it. Dana White ruined it. I'm sure even the UFC's like, why is he not letting them trash talk? This is what we want. I bet you if Holland and Masvidal went aggressively back and forth for a solid minute or two, and then Holland and Adesanya got into an argument, which also got shut down eventually as well, that would have added a few extra thousand pay-per-view buys, 100%. A few tens of thousands. I reckon that could have added 50k pay-per-view buys. If that press conference was chaos, weird. I hope it's not because of the WWE merge that they're doing recently. I really hope it's not that, because he's always been okay with it before. Always been okay with it. But again, Dana White seemed in a very bad mood. He was talking about the fact that he's going to want to come back to Miami at some point because, why did he say he's going to come back to Miami? Because the gate is the highest it's ever been and stuff like that. And then Pereira, again, I love when Pereira says Adesanya's name in the middle of his sentences when he's replying. You know what I mean? He just mixes up Portuguese, and then boom, Adesanya is said in the middle of his sentence. Other than that, was there anything notable about this press conference? The face-offs, I guess I can talk about. Yanez is big. I didn't realize Yanez was that big. He's a tall dude. I thought Font was going to have a bit of a height advantage over him, but it seemed like Yanez was almost the same height as Rob Font. So I'm a little bit more confident in him. He seemed like he might have a bit of a size advantage in the cage over Rob Font as well, even though Font does have the reach advantage over him. Pereira's bigger than Adesanya, that's for sure. But something I did notice, maybe it's because he was in that tank top and a dress, his arms were on show. And Adesanya, yes or no, looks a little bit bulked up for this fight. He looks a bit stronger for this fight. A little bit more weight in the arms and the upper body than he normally has. Maybe that could be to do with the gyno being way crazier than it formerly was in their last fight. But he just looks like he's bulked up a little bit of muscle for the fight. And Alex Pereira looks a little bit slimmer than usual. At least that's maybe just the way he looked in the shirt that he was wearing, or the suit that he was wearing. He had a really nice purple suit on, and Yanez was styled out as well. Gilbert Burns came dressed. Someone said, can't wait to see the debut of Gilbert the Mechanic Burns. The Mechanic Gilbert Burns. That was a decent one. Mechanic Gilbert was a little name they gave him. I thought he came dressed as like a rugrat. He looked a lot like he followed a lot of style tips from Rose Namajunas and stuff like that. Man, there's not much to discuss that went on of any interest. It was just people saying that they can't wait to fight on Saturday in Spanish for about 10 minutes over and over again. Ponzinibbio was asked a question, and he said, after winning the World Cup, I'm now going to win this fight for Argentina. Something along those lines, I believe. But yeah, fucking Dana White, man. Killed the whole thing. I was literally thinking to myself, this is going to be a good one. I know other press conferences are bad, but trust it. This is going to be a really good press conference because you've got Kevin Holland, and he just had a backstage altercation with Masvidal. Maybe, just maybe, I could be reaching here. Maybe we'll never hear about this. They're all backstage together, Holland and Masvidal and all that. I could definitely see a reality where maybe there was another little bit of a scuffle backstage, or they were just mouthing off at each other backstage, and Dana's like, right, fuck this. I'm not letting them go at each other on stage whatsoever. Maybe that's what it was, and that's why he was in a bad mood. Maybe there was a scuffle backstage, who knows. Other than that, Masvidal said, when's the last guy Covington finished? Miami, and really spiced up his accent for them. But I love you, Miami. I love you. And he said, when's the last time Covington finished someone? Well, actually, Colby Covington, funnily enough, as someone in my chat pointed out immediately after he said it, when is the last time Covington finished someone? The last time Covington finished someone was September of 2020. The last time Masvidal finished someone was November of 2019. So that's very interesting, isn't it? A very interesting situation there for Jorge Masvidal. Very intriguing. And before you say, well, Woodley wasn't really a good stoppage and a good finish from Colby Covington, that doesn't count. Well, Masvidal's was against Nate Diaz, and that was a doctor stoppage due to a cut, so that don't really count either. So I thought that was an interesting moment. And other than that, Masvidal tried to get a Let's Go Brandon chant going, which kind of worked with the crowd, kind of not, which was pretty decent. So that was another moment that Masvidal had at the press conference as well. He was asked about the BMF belt and whether or not he'd be putting it on the line again, and he said if he gets a few more wins together, then he'll put up the BMF title. That title's never getting put up again. I think it's cringe. I think the whole BMF belt thing's cringe. I'm a real negative Nancy this week, I've noticed. Anyway, hopefully Adesanya gets slept for wearing a society-destroying outfit on stage. See you later. Goodbye. Toodle pip. Giga Chad Pereira for the win this weekend. See you later.